Our next panel is Angels and Hackers, the New Wizards of Financing. This panel looks at how digital entertainment projects are being financed, whether through angel investors and venture capital players, consumers, or crowdsourcing. Our moderator, here's my next name challenge, Mark Evans. Actually, Mark and I go back a ways. Mark is the principal of ME Consulting. He works with startups and entrepreneurs to deliver digital market strategies and tactical execution, and has worked with firms such as Sysomos, Scribble Live, Atomic Reach, Syncaps, and Wave Accounting. Prior to his consulting work, Mark worked for 3 new media startups and was an award-winning technology reporter with the Globe and Mail, the National Post, and Bloomberg News. Mark still writes several blogs, including Mark Evans Tech and a twice-a-week online column about startups and entrepreneurs for the Globe and Mail. We're going to have, it's going to be an interesting format. I think Mark's going to run it a bit more free-flowing, some questions and answers throughout. If you have a question, make sure you wait till the microphone gets to you before you pose it. Raise your hands and one of the volunteers will come to you. Join me in welcoming Mark Evans.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Thanks, Terry, for the introduction. I think we've got a very interesting panel because we've got people from different parts of the financing ecosystem. So before we do the introduction, a couple of things. One is if you want to ask questions throughout, that would be great. Raise your hand and one of the volunteers will come by and give you a microphone. Second, if you want to be on the Twitter machine, the hashtag, I believe, is OMDC. 12, is it OMDC? What's the hashtag, Terry?
OMDCDD 2012.
Oh, 2012, okay. And just before we get started, just to get a lay of the land in terms of the people who have been involved in finance. Anybody here has done a sort of a friends and family round in terms of doing their startup? Okay. Angels? Venture capital? Devils, yes. Well, that's what they call VCs, are the devils, actually. So apologies to the VCs.
That's a great start.
And anybody done a hardcore, like, major VC round here? All right, so I guess a lot. What about government financing, government grants, credits, things like that? Okay. All right, wow. All right, this is a whole new world for me, awesome. I'm sure us. All right. Well, maybe to set the stage in terms of the world that we tend to operate in. So I've been covering technology for the last 15 years, both as a reporter, as an entrepreneur, and as a consultant. And I can confidently say that the startup landscape and the financing landscape for startups and entrepreneurs has never been better. We are in the midst of what I call an entrepreneurial renaissance. And it's probably one of the most exciting periods of time in my professional career. And it's a real market change to 5 years ago when the scene was dominated by people who I describe as digital hobos. And these are people who talk the talk, but they just didn't have what it took to walk the walk. So if I only had angel financing, if I only could take a break from my job, if I could only find people who could help me, there was plenty of excuses. And these people went from event to event to event complaining about why they wouldn't do a startup. Today, that's completely changed. The barriers to entry for startups are lower than they've ever been before. There's not like an avalanche of capital, but there's a healthy flow of capital. And I think what you'll get from the panelists today is some really interesting perspective on the different avenues and the pros and cons of each channel that you might want to explore. So, without further ado, I'll introduce our panelists. To my immediate right is J.S. Cournoyer, partner with Real Ventures in Montreal. Thank you for coming here. Real Ventures is probably one of the most exciting and active seed players, among other things, in Canada. So I'm really excited that you're here to tell us more about what you're doing.
Very happy to be here.
Andrew Giosa is Senior Account Manager with RBC's Media and Entertainment Practice. And he's going to be talking about some different support programs for startups and entrepreneurs. Sebastien McArthur is the forum and marketing manager for Hot Docs, and she sort of gave me the sneak peek of an announcement that they're going to be made soon. I think do you have the disclosure to talk about it?
Yes.
Excellent. I always like making news at conferences. And Salim Teja is an old friend of mine. Back when I was a reporter, and he was a hotshot entrepreneur during the .com, the original .com boom.
That's right.
And now Salim is with Decode Ventures, and he'll be talking a little bit about his involvement with startups and seed investing. So JS, maybe I can start with you. In terms of maybe giving the audience some insight into the financing landscape these days, because I think all of us are pretty stoked about what's happening, but maybe put it in context, and what does it mean, and are we overly optimistic because it's been so bad for so long?
I mean, I would start by challenging your introduction.
That's not good.
So I don't think that the funding ecosystem is as good as it's ever been. It's actually still pretty dire across the country. There are pockets where there is some money being deployed, but the market was so bad for, like from 2004 till about a couple of years ago, was terrible across the country. So now that we're seeing some funds, some activity, some deals getting done, people get all excited. But when I look at the Montreal market as an example where we're mostly active, we're doing investments, but they're in $250,000 chunks, right? That's the nature of our business. And you have two other venture funds, well, actually three others that are active, BDC, which is a new thing, Inovia, which just closed the fund, and Row, but they've done 5 or 6 deals combined in Montreal, and very few in Canada. So they are present there, but they haven't done much. There's one angel group in Montreal. You look at Toronto, lots of pockets, but small groups. Matt Golden's got a $15 million fund. The guys at Extreme are in the process of doing something, but it's still, Mentella has a 20 million or so. It's still very, very small pockets. I mean, if we go back 10 years, you had over a dozen firms in Canada running $100 million plus funds. So the amount of capital is very limited. Now,
the equity. Say something good soon?
Yeah. So now I think the other point that I agree with you on the ecosystem is that you now have people in the market that have been entrepreneurs before, that understand what entrepreneurs go through and have the right mindset in helping entrepreneurs build businesses. So even though you have less capital, the capital is much more entrepreneur friendly. And if you go back 10 years, a lot of the money was in government type structures. If you look at the Van Growth funds, if you look at, we had the government sponsored funds in Quebec, those were not what you would call value-add investors for the entrepreneurs or pro-entrepreneurs, and that's changed quite a bit. So that's very exciting.
So Salim, I mean, to give you some context, Salim had a company, one of the co-founders of a company called A Company during the dot-com boom. You raised, was it $50 million?
That's right.
So you've seen the entire kind of landscape. And so what are you feeling these days? I mean, maybe I am being bullish. I mean, I sort of do wave the flag.
No, I am bullish. I'm all in on this, right? But we have to take the hype and the reality.
Right.
And I think a lot of great companies will come out of this new class, but there's still a lot of room for more capital to come in.
Okay. So Salim, what's your...
we did our first startup back in 1997. And there really wasn't an ecosystem here to raise money in Canada. We had to move to California to raise our first round of funding and build our company out of California. And of course, over there, the ecosystem was very, very rich. Everyone from private investors, angels, to venture capital funds, to accelerators have been there for a very, very long time. And so, getting exposed to what was there was an unbelievable experience for us as young entrepreneurs. I came back to Canada. And at that point, the venture community was starting to develop, and I think getting very exposed to really good opportunities and deals. But we're still dealing with opportunities that weren't really grand or broad in vision. I think the difference I'm seeing now is the quality of deals, the quality of entrepreneurs, the quality of ventures and opportunities that we're discussing with people is just unbelievable. There's so much potential, so much raw talent in the city and around the city, that it's exciting, I think, now to be able to put together some funds, work with angel communities, work with groups like the OMDC and try and build momentum around some of these ventures because the quality is really first class nowadays.